What usually destroys a massive, powerful empire? It rarely starts with an invading army. It usually starts with envy. To understand how a dynasty rots from the inside, we have to look at an ancient Indian text set in the kingdom of Hastinapur. It's called the Mahabharata. With over 100,000 verses, it stands as the longest epic poem in human history. The sheer scale of this work is captured in the myth of how it was written. According to legend, a wise sage named Vyasa composed the entire epic in his mind and needed someone to write it down as he spoke. He enlisted the elephant-headed deity, Lord Ganesha, to act as his scribe. Ganesha agreed, but on one strict condition. Vyasa had to dictate the entire story without stopping to take a single breath or pause his thoughts. This epic provides a brutal, forensic breakdown of how simple human jealousy can completely dismantle a family and a kingdom from the inside out. The crisis begins with a classic power vacuum. A blind king sits on the throne of Hastinapur, and because of his condition, questions swirl about who will actually inherit the empire. The royal family splits into two competing camps. On one side, you have the king's own children, 100 sons, known collectively as the Kauravas. On the other side are the king's nephews. There are only 5 of them, known as the Pandavas. But what they lack in numbers, they make up for in natural talent, intellect, and sheer capability. That capability creates a massive problem. The 100 sons look at their 5 cousins and feel a deep, gnawing insecurity. They become completely paranoid that these talented nephews are going to steal their royal birthright. When leaders make decisions driven by fear and jealousy, they start breaking the rules. And in doing so, they trigger the exact collapse they are desperately trying to avoid. Over the years, this paranoia escalates. What starts as childhood bullying turns into political assassination attempts, rigged gambling matches, and eventually the forced 13-year exile of the 5 Pandava brothers into the forest. Eventually, the boiling point is reached. Every attempt at diplomacy completely fails, dragging the entire known world into a catastrophic civil war, where every ancient kingdom is forced to choose a side. But as the horns blow and the battle is about to begin, we hit the brakes. The narrative zooms into the very center of the battlefield, focusing on just one man, Arjuna, the lead military commander for the Pandavas. Looking across the front lines, Arjuna has a devastating realization. To win back his rightful kingdom, he must shoot arrows directly into the faces of his favorite uncles, his childhood teachers, and his own cousins. He experiences the ultimate form of executive paralysis. What are you supposed to do when the only way to save your kingdom requires destroying the very people who raised you? Arjuna completely breaks down. He physically drops his bow, sinks into the floor of his chariot, and flat out refuses to fight. He quits, right there on the front lines. This leaves his chariot driver, a man named Krishna, in a difficult position. Krishna realizes he has to immediately step out of the role of driver and step into the role of a supreme mentor and guide. What follows is a frantic philosophical conversation between these 2 men in the middle of a frozen battlefield. That exact dialogue is recorded as the Bhagavad Gita, a text that has influenced global philosophy for centuries. Krishna doesn't offer Arjuna a shoulder to cry on. Instead, he issues a sharp rebuke. He systematically strips away Arjuna's emotional excuses, explaining that this is not the time to indulge in sentimentality. In a moment of absolute crisis, a vital leadership asset is a mentor who forces you to look directly at brutal reality and act, regardless of your personal anxieties. To get Arjuna to fight, Krishna introduces a complex concept called dharma. In this context, dharma means your inherent duty, the strict ethical responsibility dictated by the specific role you play in the world. He applies this directly to Arjuna's situation. Arjuna is a prince and a soldier. His core responsibility is to protect the innocent and destroy injustice, no matter who is committing that injustice. To drive the point home, Krishna reveals his true, terrifying divine form to Arjuna. He shows him a massive cosmic vision to prove that the universe operates on strict duty and order, not on the shifting emotional preferences of human beings. It is a harsh lesson. Krishna tells him that his personal grief over fighting his relatives is essentially irrelevant. Stepping aside and allowing a toxic, tyrannical regime to take power simply because they are family would be his ultimate moral failure. Doing the right thing is rarely comfortable. True leadership demands the agonizing discipline of separating your personal attachments from your moral and professional obligations. Arjuna absorbs the lesson. He picks up his weapons and he fights. The Pandavas do eventually win the war, but the victory is entirely hollow. Millions of lives are lost, and the kingdom is left devastated. By the end of the epic, the 100 Kaurava brothers are entirely wiped out because they allowed envy to steer their decisions. The 5 Pandava brothers survive, but only because they allowed duty to steer theirs. We might not be firing arrows from chariots today, but the core conflict hasn't changed. Whether you have to fire a close friend who is toxic to your workplace, or dismantle a legacy department that is dragging your company down, the emotional friction is identical. When you are staring down a scenario with no easy way out, you cannot allow fear, personal favors, or the desire to avoid pain to make the decision for you. The Mahabharata survives as an unforgiving blueprint for navigating the lonely psychological agony of doing what is right, transcending its origins as a mythological story.